Horizon Point was quiet that morning. The blue star it orbited cast soft light over the small human outpost. Ships drifted in orbit, and the station's domes and towers reflected the glow like tiny mirrors. Inside the control room, Captain Luke Carter watched the screens, his brow furrowed. He had served in many places, but the edge of known space had a weight he could feel in his chest. "Still nothing from the Shalvar," said Lieutenant Jason Clark, leaning over a console. His fingers moved quickly over the keys. No messages, no patrols, just silence. Luke shook his head. "Silence can be worse than noise, Jason. We need to stay ready." In the science wing, Dr. Megan Lewis looked out of a reinforced window at the distant star. Her research on local life had been peaceful until now, but the tension in the sector had begun to make her nervous. She turned to her assistant. "Keep the sensors on. If anything changes, we need to know immediately." Outside, a small transport was preparing to dock. Horizon Point had only a few dozen residents at the time, mostly humans who studied the planets, traded with passing ships, or maintained the station. The humans had no large military force here, only a few armed guards and shielded corridors. They had always relied on Earth's fleet for protection, but it was far away, and the subspace signal could take days to reach them. A bright flash suddenly appeared on the main screen. "What is that?" Jason asked, his voice tense. Luke moved closer. "Shalvar ship. It's in orbit. And it's not alone." A second ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Then a third. All were sleek, dark, and silent. There was no warning, no hail from their radios, only the sudden appearance of the alien ships. "Commander, they're demanding evacuation," said Jason, reading the translated message from the Shalvar envoy. "They want all humans off this system in 72 hours. Luke ran his hand over his face. "Evacuate? They don't even know if we can leave in time, and they just showed up without warning. This isn't negotiation. It's intimidation." Megan entered the room, carrying a tablet with data. "They've been marking systems like this for months. They treat other species as intruders. If we leave quietly, they will just take more systems next." Luke nodded. "We have to prepare for every possibility. Jason, start alerting the crew and raising the shields. Megan, make sure the lab data is secured. We may have only hours to respond if they attack." The next day passed with tense waiting. Horizon Point buzzed with hurried preparations. Supplies were packed, emergency pods were checked, and communication lines to Earth were tested again and again. Then, without warning, the Shalvar attacked. The first shots hit the station's shields, sending bright flashes across the sky. Energy rippled through the domes, and alarms rang through the corridors. Luke shouted orders over the intercom. "All stations to battle stations. Evacuate non-essential personnel. Shields to full. Ribe." Megan tried to calm the scientists in the lab. "Grab the data drives. Follow the evacuation route. Stay low and move fast." Jason stayed at the communications console, sending every fragment of sensor and video data to Earth. "This is going out. If anyone sees this, they'll know what happened." The attack was fast and precise. The Shalvar had studied human technology, and they knew exactly where to hit. Power grids failed, and some sections of the station went dark. Corridors filled with smoke and sparks. Crew members ran through the halls, trying to help each other. But the explosions made it dangerous to stay in one place. Luke and a few guards held the main corridor. They fired at boarding Shalvar troops, using pulse rifles and energy shields to slow their advance. "Keep moving," he yelled. "Don't let them take the command center." Megan led the scientists toward the emergency pods. "Go. Go. We don't have time to argue." She carried several drives with research data. ignoring the sparks flying around her. Jason continued sending transmissions, his fingers flying over the controls. He knew that what he sent could be the only proof of the attack. He could hear the screams over the comms and the crashing of metal. "Please, hurry," he whispered. "Please. Let someone hear this." Luke made a last stand in the central hall. The Shalvar broke through the shields and pushed forward. Luke fired at the alien soldiers, giving the remaining humans time to escape. The walls shook as energy blasts hit the station, and he realized he might not make it out alive. Still, he would not give up. Not when lives depended on him. Finally, the emergency pods launched. Some reached orbit safely, carrying people into the blackness of space. Some were destroyed by Shalvar fire. Megan's pod drifted silently away from the station, her face pale, eyes wide with fear. She looked back at the burning station, and the last image she saw was Luke, standing in the hall, holding his ground until the end. The transmission Jason sent reached Earth hours later. In a secure room, Admiral Karen Mitchell watched it with her jaw tight. The video was shaky, filled with smoke and fire, but the horror was clear. Horizon Point was gone. The calm star system now held only burning debris where a human outpost had been. Karen called her staff together. This was no accident. The Shalvar attacked without warning. They targeted civilians. They destroyed our outpost. She paused, looking at the faces around her. We cannot ignore this. Back in space, the survivors drifted toward the nearest human cruiser. Megan, exhausted and injured, held the data drives tightly. She remembered the faces of her colleagues, the sounds of explosions, and the fire that consumed Horizon Point. She hoped Luke had survived, though she had no proof. The attack had changed everything. Humans had always been patient, always measured in response. But now, they had seen the brutality of the Shalvar, the destruction of Horizon Point, and the loss of friends and colleagues. Karen sat in her office later, staring at the recordings. She whispered to herself, "This is the frontier, and no one attacks humans and survives unscathed." The galaxy would soon learn that humanity was not weak. Horizon Point might be gone, but the memory of those who fell would not be forgotten. And Earth, patient and far away, had now received the warning it needed. The Shalvar had made a grave mistake, and humans were beginning to prepare their answer. Earth had received the transmissions from Horizon Point hours after the attack. The grainy images of fire and smoke, the screams, and the desperate last moments of Captain Luke Carter filled the secure council room. Admiral Karen Mitchell sat at the head of the long table, her face pale but firm. Around her, council members spoke quietly, their eyes fixed on the screens. Councillor Daniel Ross leaned forward, his hands clenched. "This is worse than we thought. Entire stations destroyed, unprovoked. They attacked humans without warning." Councillor Olivia Ward shook her head slowly. "We must be careful. Retaliation could escalate the situation. We cannot assume every alien species will understand our motives. A misstep could start a larger war." Karen did not speak immediately. She replayed the final moments from Jason Clark's pod transmission. Luke Carter's figure, standing in a corridor lit by fire and sparks, gave the camera one last defiant look before the signal cut off. Karen felt a tight knot in her chest. Humans had been patient for too long. Now patience could cost millions more lives. Daniel Ross slammed a fist on the table. "We cannot wait for diplomacy. They struck first. If we respond with caution, they will strike again. This is our frontier, and if we do not protect it, we risk losing everything beyond our solar system." Olivia looked at him, calm but firm. "Daniel, I understand your anger, but caution is not weakness. We must consider the consequences of our actions. If we strike too hard, too fast, We risk becoming what we condemn. Karen turned to the council. I want facts. I need evidence of the attack, scope of damage, and possible responses. Bring me every sensor reading, every transmission from Horizon Point, and every log from the patrol ships in the sector. A young officer brought up the data. Grainy images showed the sudden arrival of Shalvar ships, their dark hulls appearing from nowhere. Diagrams illustrated the areas of the station destroyed. Heat sensors marked corridors and labs reduced to molten metal. A final report showed the number of survivors who had escaped in pods, including some injured, and listed the missing, including Luke Carter and others, still unaccounted for. Megan Lewis had made it to a human cruiser with a few other survivors. She was brought to Earth under medical care and debriefing. Her calm voice, despite exhaustion, was recorded for the council. They hit the power grids first, Megan explained. Then they targeted areas where civilians and scientists were likely to be. They did not give a warning. They did not try to negotiate. They only wanted destruction. Horizon Point had no defense strong enough to stop them. The room fell silent as the council watched the transmission. Even Olivia Ward looked concerned. She is right, Olivia admitted. They attacked without reason. That much is clear. We cannot ignore this. Karen spoke firmly. I want options. Not theories. Real strategies. How do we respond? And how do we make sure nothing like this happens again? A military advisor spoke next. We have 3 main options. 1. A limited strike on the Shalvar fleet in the sector. This would damage their military capability, but would not reach their home system. 2. Economic and diplomatic measures. We could attempt to work with allied species to pressure the Shalvar, but this would take time. And the Shalvar have shown no interest in compromise. 3. A strategic demonstration. We could disable or neutralize the Shalvar home system's military capability, showing that humans can reach them anywhere. Daniel Ross nodded quickly. Option 3. That is the only way they will understand the cost of attacking us. If we strike only in the sector, they will rebuild and strike again. We need to make it impossible for them to threaten human colonies. Olivia frowned. Option 3 carries risk. The Shalvar home system is far away. Striking there could be seen as an act of war, not defense. We could escalate beyond control. Civilian lives might be affected, and we cannot be sure of the long-term consequences. Karen looked at the 2 counselors. I understand both of you. Daniel, your point about deterrence is strong. Olivia, your caution is wise. We need a response that is precise, effective, and limits civilian harm. We need to stop their war capability without destroying their people if possible. A science officer spoke next. Admiral, humans have developed planet-scale infrastructure disruption technology. Originally, it was designed to end wars by disabling military systems without harming civilians. We can target orbital stations, shipyards, and command networks. In other words, we can erase their ability to wage war without burning cities or killing most people. Karen considered the report. So, if we use this technology, we can remove the threat while keeping civilian populations alive? Yes, the officer replied. The system can focus on military installations, orbital platforms, and networks. Civilian life support and cities are largely untouched. Megan Lewis's voice came over the comm again. You need to understand what happened at Horizon Point. The Shalvar attacked without warning, striking life support sections and civilian areas first. We were not armed to fight them. We barely escaped. If this happens again, humans will not be able to protect their colonies. Karen leaned back in her chair. The faces of the counselors were tense. They had seen the evidence, heard the survivors' testimony, and understood the gravity of the situation. Millions of human lives, and the safety of colonies across the frontier, hung in the balance. Daniel Ross spoke again. We have the technology, the fleets, and the moral right to act. Horizon Point is gone. Do we allow that to happen again? No. We act. And we act now. Olivia Ward shook her head. I am not saying we do nothing. I am saying we must plan carefully. An attack on their home system is not a simple strike. We cannot predict everything. We must ensure that our actions are measured and that we avoid unnecessary loss of civilian life. Karen nodded. We will follow that principle. Operation Eclipse will be precise, targeting only their military capability. We will not seek revenge, only justice and protection for human colonies. The council voted. A narrow majority approved the plan. Daniel Ross clenched his fists in quiet satisfaction. Olivia Ward closed her eyes and sighed, hoping that the precision technology would work as intended. Karen knew the responsibility was hers alone. She would lead the fleet, make the decisions in real time, and ensure that humans acted with the right balance of force and caution. Meanwhile, the survivors from Horizon Point were brought to Earth. Megan Lewis walked the quiet corridors of the medical station, thinking about her friends. Some had survived. Some had not. Jason Clark, brave at his console, had sent the evidence that made the council act. Luke Carter's fate was unknown, but his courage had inspired every decision made on Earth that day. The fleet was preparing. Ships left dry docks, weapons systems were tested, and crews trained for a mission unlike any other. Stealth corvettes were readied for infiltration. Engineers worked day and night to ensure that the disruption arrays would function with maximum precision. Megan spoke with Admiral Karen in a small office above the docks. Do you think it is right? She asked softly. We are about to disable their world's military capability. Some civilians might be affected even if we are careful. Karen looked out the window at the departing fleet. I don't know, Megan. But I do know this. If we do not act, more Horizon Points will fall. More lives will be lost. We are not seeking revenge. We are stopping a threat before it grows. That is our duty. Megan nodded slowly. I understand. I just hope it is enough to prevent more death. Graf. Karen placed a hand on her shoulder. It will be. Humans are strong. But we are also careful. We act only when necessary. And we do it with purpose. The Shalvar will see that attacking humans carries a cost they cannot escape. At night, Earth's cities were quiet. Stars shone in the sky, indifferent to the tension in human space. Yet behind the scenes, humans were moving fast. Fleets were assembling. Plans were being finalized. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly. Every simulation was checked. Every system tested. And every crew member briefed. The humans were preparing to answer. Horizon Point had been destroyed, but humanity was far from defeated. The message from Earth would soon reach the Shalvar. Attack a human outpost, and the humans will respond with a power and precision that no species could ignore. As Megan rested in her quarters, she thought about the day Horizon Point fell. She could still see the fire, hear the alarms, and feel the panic. But she also knew that humans could endure, humans could act decisively, and humans would not allow the frontier to fall into the hands of aggressors. Operation Eclipse was ready. And the galaxy would soon understand that humans do not forgive attacks lightly. The human fleet moved quietly through space. Thousands of kilometers of darkness separated Earth from the Shalvar home system. On the bridge of the flagship, Admiral Karen Mitchell stood tall, her eyes fixed on the navigation display. The fleet was ready, its ships organized in tight formations. Human technology, carefully designed and tested, would give them an advantage even against a larger Shalvar force. Captain Ethan Rogers, the fleet operations chief, checked the systems repeatedly. Weapons calibrated, shields at maximum, stealth corvettes in position for infiltration. Karen nodded. Good. Remember, Our mission is precise. We are not here for revenge. We are here to stop their military capability. Civilian life must be spared whenever possible. In a small, stealth corvette, far ahead of the main fleet, Commander Ryan Cole studied the star charts. He was responsible for leading the infiltration team into the Shalvar system. Alongside him was Specialist Lisa Morgan, a skilled systems hacker and engineer. She was quiet but determined, her fingers flying over a holographic keyboard as she ran simulations for network intrusions. "Their patrol patterns are changing," Lisa said. "They've detected unusual movement near the outer edges. We may need to adjust our approach." Ryan looked at her calmly. "We stick to the plan. Stealth is our best weapon. We get in, map the defenses, and mark targets. Then, we fall back to the fleet. No unnecessary engagement." The corvette slipped through space, almost invisible against the stars. Sensors scanned the system for Shalvar ships, but human stealth technology kept them hidden. Inside, the tension was high. Every beep, every flicker on the display made the crew hold their breath. Meanwhile, the main fleet followed behind, waiting for confirmation from the stealth team. Ships of all sizes traveled in formation. Cruisers, carriers, destroyers, and support vessels. Each was armed with energy weapons, kinetic cannons, and the new disruption arrays designed to erase military capability without harming civilians. Back on the flagship, Admiral Karen addressed the fleet through a secure channel. "Remember, we strike with precision and purpose. Our goal is to prevent further attacks on human colonies. Any civilian life accidentally affected is regrettable, but we will avoid it whenever possible. Our actions today will define humanity for the galaxy. Stay calm, stay focused, and trust in each other." The stealth corvette reached the outer edge of the Shalvar home system. The planet below rotated slowly, its cities glowing in the light of its sun. Orbital stations, military shipyards, and defensive platforms surrounded it like a ring. Ryan and Lisa could see the Shalvar fleets patrolling the outer zones. The scale of their military might was intimidating. Lisa frowned. "This is larger than we expected. If we are detected, they could destroy us before we complete the mapping." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Then we make sure we are not detected. Stay focused on your systems, Lisa. We have one chance to gather the data we need for the fleet." Inside the corvette, sensors scanned the network of command centers and orbital installations. Lisa used her hacking skills to penetrate the Shalvar security protocols. Every ship, every station, every weapon platform was logged and tagged. She wrote safeguards into the disruption code, ensuring that civilian areas and life support systems on the planet remained untouched. Ryan watched the screens carefully. "We have about 6 hours before the patrol shifts change. If we move now, we can map the outer defenses and pull back before they notice." Lisa nodded, her fingers moving quickly. "Almost done. Sending encrypted updates back to the fleet now." In orbit above the planet, the main human fleet waited for the confirmation. Karen paced the bridge, her mind filled with calculations and possibilities. The Shalvar might detect the infiltration. They might attack the fleet before the disruption arrays could reach full power. Every move had to be timed perfectly. Then the first signals arrived. Lisa's transmission confirmed that all major military targets had been mapped. The fleet now had exact locations for orbital weapons, command stations, and shipyards. Karen gave the order. "Prepare for Phase 2. Begin the strike sequence." In an instant, human ships moved into position. From stealth fighters to cruisers, each ship deployed with precision. Weapons locked on orbital platforms. Disruption arrays were aligned. Human crews followed their training to the letter. The first strikes hit the Shalvar orbital weapons platforms. Energy pulses disabled their targeting systems. Explosions were controlled, precise, and devastating. The Shalvar fleet scrambled, trying to respond. But the human assault was coordinated too well. Karen's voice came over the fleet channel. Stay on target. Focus on disabling, not destroying. Civilian areas are off limits. We strike only at military capability. Dogfights erupted between human fighters and Shalvar interceptors. Lasers and energy blasts cut across the darkness of space. Human tactics, speed, and coordination gave them the edge, even when outnumbered. Shields held, and fleets moved in tight formations, protecting each other from fire. Meanwhile, the stealth corvette moved closer to the planet. Lisa began the final part of the mission. She initiated the disruption pulse, sending signals into the Shalvar networks. Systems overloaded, weapon platforms shut down, and command centers lost contact with each other. The Shalvar fleets, confused and powerless, drifted in orbit. On the planet, civilians looked up at the sky as lights from the orbital stations went dark. They did not understand what was happening, but they could see the sudden silence in space. Ships stopped moving, weapons froze, and the glow of industrial stations dimmed. Karen monitored the strike from the flagship. Disruption arrays active. All targets confirmed disabled. Report status. Signals returned from ships across the fleet. Weapon platforms were offline. Shipyards were inert. Command centers were cut off. Phase 2 was a success. The Shalvar military was neutralized without damage to cities or civilian life. Lisa smiled faintly in the Corvette. It worked. Their fleets are dead in space. Their stations are offline. The planet is still alive. We did it. Ryan nodded. Good. Now we fall back and regroup with the main fleet. We have delivered the message. Humans will not be attacked without consequence. Karen addressed the fleet. All ships, hold formation. Prepare to withdraw. Once confirmation of target neutralization is complete, we have sent a clear signal. Any attack on humans will be met with overwhelming precision. The Shalvar leaders watched from their control centers, stunned. They could not comprehend how humans had reached their system, disabled their military, and left their civilians untouched. Fear began to spread among their ranks. The message was clear. Humans were not just another species to dominate. Humans were capable, efficient, and decisive. Back in the Corvette, Lisa transmitted the final logs to the fleet. Every disabled system, every neutralized station, and every command structure was recorded. This data would prevent the Shalvar from rebuilding quickly and ensure that any future attacks would be met with equal or greater force. Ryan spoke quietly. This is more than just a strike. It is a warning. The galaxy will remember this day. Karen nodded on the flagship. Yes. Horizon Point is gone, but humanity will ensure that it never happens again. This is our message to every species that thinks they can threaten human life without consequence. The fleet began its slow withdrawal from the Shalvar system. They did not celebrate. There was no cheering or triumph. The humans had acted with purpose, precision, and responsibility. They had delivered justice without excess. And now, it was time to return and prepare for whatever the galaxy might do next. As the stars stretched past the viewports of the flagship, Karen thought of Horizon Point, of Luke Carter, Jason Clarke, and the others who had fallen. Their sacrifice had led to this moment. Humanity had answered the attack, not with rage, but with measured power. In the Corvette, Megan Lewis watched from a viewport as the planet below slowly returned to its normal rotation, now free of the threat posed by its own military. She thought of the lives saved, of the precision that had kept civilians unharmed, and of the humans who had carried out the mission with skill and care. This is only the beginning, she whispered to herself. The galaxy will know what humans are capable of. And across the human fleet, from flagship to corvette, from fighters to cruisers, the silent understanding was clear. Humanity had moved, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again.